In the heart of Los Angeles, on a bustling street corner, Maria Johnson stood on the brink of losing everything she had worked for, her career, her future, ripped away in a single moment. After 6 years of unwavering dedication, she was unjustly fired. Her heart heavy with betrayal, she stepped out of the hospital, uncertain of what came next. But just when it seemed like life had pushed her to her breaking point, fate threw her an unexpected twist. When a man collapsed at her feet, the very city that had discarded her was about to offer her a chance to change everything. What happened next would make her question everything she thought she knew about opportunity, struggle, and the power of one single decision. Maria stood in a sterile office, her body rigid with the weight of the conversation she had been dreading. Dr. Evelyn Patterson, the hospital administrator, sat across from her, looking at her with a mixture of professionalism and indifference. The stack of papers on the desk seemed to mock Maria as she tried to steady her breath. "I'm sorry, Maria," Dr. Patterson began, her tone cool and rehearsed. "Due to the ongoing financial struggles the hospital is facing, we've had to make some difficult decisions. Unfortunately, your position has been cut." Maria's heart sank, but she refused to show weakness. 6 years of tireless dedication, countless nights of overtime, and endless hours caring for patients, and this was how it ended. She had been the one to stay when others left, the one to go the extra mile without ever asking for recognition. Yet now, she was just another name on a list of layoffs. She stared at Dr. Patterson, feeling the sting of betrayal. "I don't understand. I've been here through it all. I've given everything. How can this be the outcome?" Maria's voice was steady, but her eyes burned with the emotion she was fighting to suppress. Dr. Patterson adjusted her glasses, avoiding Maria's gaze. "The decision isn't personal, Maria. You've been a great nurse, but the cuts are coming from the top. These things happen, and unfortunately, the budget constraints leave us no choice." Maria clenched her fists under the table, biting back the surge of anger that threatened to spill over. "It's not personal, you say. But tell me, how is it not personal when I'm the only one here, along with a few others, who looks like me? I've worked harder than anyone, and this is the thanks I get." Dr. Patterson's lips pressed into a thin line, but she remained silent. Maria felt the bitterness rise in her chest. She had seen the staff list earlier that week, she knew who was being let go. It wasn't just about financial cuts. It never was. When times got tough, it was always people like her who paid the price. The ones who had to fight harder, be better, just to be seen as competent. And now, she was being cast aside like a disposable object. The silence in the room felt suffocating. She could feel the walls closing in, the years of hard work and sacrifice flashing through her mind like a cruel joke. Maria stood, her hands shaking as she pushed the chair back with a soft screech. "Fine," she said, her voice tight with restraint. "I'll pack my things." Dr. Patterson looked at her with a hint of pity, but it did nothing to soften the sting. "I'm really sorry, Maria. You deserve better." Maria didn't respond. She walked out of the office, her head held high despite the fury that burned in her chest. The hospital, a place she had poured so much of herself into, now felt like a prison. Outside, the cold air of Los Angeles hit her like a slap in the face. The reality of her situation hit harder. She had no job, no backup plan, and bills piling up at home. Her mother, dependent on her support, was at the forefront of her thoughts. How was she going to manage? The city moved around her, busy, indifferent. People rushed by, focused on their own lives. She shoved her hands into her coat pockets and began walking, her mind swirling with anger, confusion, and fear. It wasn't fair. But Maria had learned long ago that fairness was never a part of the equation for people like her. She didn't know what would come next, but she was certain of one thing: she couldn't stop now. She had to keep moving forward, even if she didn't know where she was going. As Maria walked down the bustling sidewalk, the weight of her thoughts pressed heavily on her shoulders. The city of Los Angeles, with its cold steel structures and fast-paced energy, felt alien to her now. People rushed past, oblivious to her turmoil, their faces hidden behind the masks of their busy lives. She had always prided herself on being a fighter, but this was different. She had given everything, and yet, it felt like the world had tossed her aside. Her hands were buried deep in the pockets of her coat as she continued to walk, her footsteps slow and heavy. The wind cut through the streets, and the noise of the city seemed to fade into the background as Maria's mind spun in circles. How could it all have unraveled so quickly? The layoff, the mounting bills, the pressure of taking care of her mother, she didn't know how much more she could handle. Then, without warning, the sound of a commotion ahead broke through her thoughts. Maria's instincts kicked in before her brain even had time to process what was happening. A crowd had gathered around something, their voices rising in hushed murmurs of concern. She pushed through the throng of people, her heart pounding in her chest. And there, sprawled on the pavement, was a man. His skin was pale, his body unnervingly still. A few onlookers stood frozen, too shocked to act. A woman in a coat clutched her chest, her face stricken with fear. A man, dressed in a sharp suit, fumbled with his phone, but no one moved to help. Maria's gaze immediately dropped to the man's chest, and she saw the rise and fall of his shallow breaths. Without hesitation, she knelt beside him. Her hands moved quickly and decisively, pressing 2 fingers to his neck to check his pulse. It was weak. His heart was struggling to keep up. "He's in cardiac distress," Maria said firmly, her voice cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. "Call an ambulance. Now." Her eyes scanned the crowd, seeking someone to act. The man with the phone was still fumbling with it, too panicked to be of any use. "Get the AED," Maria commanded, her voice sharp. The crowd hesitated. No one seemed to move. She looked up at the young barista standing near the entrance of a cafe. The barista's eyes darted between Maria and the fallen man, unsure. Maria's patience was running thin. "Go get it," she snapped, her voice like a whip. The barista flinched, but then rushed into the cafe. As Maria began chest compressions, 1, 2, 3, her focus was laser-sharp. Her training kicked in, she had done this 1,000 times before. But then, a voice sliced through the air, sharp and accusing. What is she doing? Is she going through his pockets? The words came from a man in the crowd, his tone suspicious, filled with doubt. The whispers spread like wildfire. Maria's hands didn't falter. She ignored the accusation, the sting of it lashing against her like a physical blow. She kept pressing, her rhythm unbroken. But the crowd's doubt was palpable, their eyes on her like she was the one to blame. Another voice joined in, a woman now. She could be robbing him. Who knows what she's really doing? Maria felt the rage burn deep inside her. 6 years of saving lives, 6 years of sacrificing her time and energy, and now they thought she was a criminal. Her pulse quickened, but she pressed harder, 1, 2, 3, focusing on the life beneath her hands. Suddenly, a deep voice cut through the noise, commanding and filled with authority. "She's a nurse." The man who had spoken had a presence that silenced the crowd instantly. "If any of you had a single ounce of sense, you'd be thanking her, not accusing her." Maria didn't take her eyes off the man on the ground, but a wave of relief washed over her. She barely registered the tall figure who had appeared beside her, standing like a rock. She didn't need to see his face to know he had her back. The ambulance sirens wailed in the distance, and soon the paramedics arrived. Maria quickly attached the AED pads and shocked the man's heart, her hands trembling but steady. As the man's chest rose with a sharp gasp, Maria felt the tension release from her shoulders. The man who had defended her stepped forward again, his voice low. "You're doing your job. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Maria didn't reply. She didn't need to. She had done what she had been trained to do. The man was breathing again. The world around her was still chaotic, but in that moment, she had found clarity. Without acknowledging the crowd or the man who had stood up for her, Maria stood up slowly, her heart still racing. She turned and walked away, not looking back. For the first time in days, she felt like she had done something right. Maria's heart was still pounding as she walked away from the scene. The chaotic energy of the city seemed to close in around her, but she kept her head high. The incident had been surreal. One moment, she had been pushed to the edge, the next, she had been saving a man's life in front of a crowd that had doubted her every move. The doubts, the accusations, they still stung. They were a harsh reminder of how quickly things could turn against her, how people who didn't even know her could paint her as a criminal, simply because of the color of her skin. She had spent 6 years in a job she loved, giving everything she had, only to be discarded as if she were expendable. But today, in the face of that crowd, something shifted in Maria. She had been questioned, doubted, and accused, yet she had stood her ground. In that moment, she had refused to back down. It was as if the weight of her years of hard work had finally found its voice. She wasn't just a nurse, she was a woman who had persevered, who had fought for every inch of recognition and respect. And today, she had fought for something even more important, a man's life. As Maria walked down the street, her mind raced with the realization that she could never allow herself to be a victim of circumstances again. The life she had known, the one where she worked herself to exhaustion and accepted the unfairness of the world, was no longer enough. She had always believed that hard work would be enough to get her through. But now, she understood that the world didn't always work that way. Sometimes, it took something more. Something unexpected. Just as she was lost in thought, her phone buzzed in her pocket, pulling her out of her reverie. She glanced at the screen. It was an unknown number, but something told her to answer. "Hello?" she said cautiously. "Maria?" The voice on the other end was deep, commanding, but there was a gentleness to it that caught her off guard. "My name is Marcus Bennett. I believe we met earlier today." Maria's heart skipped a beat. She remembered the man from the crowd, the one who had defended her. But why was he calling her now? "I'm the son of William Bennett, the man you helped today," Marcus continued. "I'd like to meet with you." Maria's thoughts immediately scattered. She was still reeling from everything that had happened, her job loss, the accusations, the chaos in the street, and now this? It felt like too much too fast. "I'm not sure what you want from me," Maria said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm just a nurse. I don't need anything from anyone." Marcus's tone softened. "I understand, but I believe my father wants to thank you properly. He's been through a lot, and I think he sees something in you, a drive, a dedication, that he can't ignore." Maria felt a lump form in her throat. She had spent so long trying to prove herself in a system that hadn't been built for her, trying to be seen as something more than just the woman who cleaned up everyone else's mess. She wasn't used to receiving praise, let alone an offer of help from someone so wealthy, so powerful. "I'm not sure what you mean," she said, her voice tinged with skepticism. "What exactly are you offering?" "There's no agenda here, Maria. Just a chance for you to take what you've earned," Marcus said. "My father is offering to fund your medical school education. No strings attached. And when you're done, we'll have a position waiting for you at one of his hospitals." Maria's breath caught in her throat. She could feel her heart racing. Medical school. A position at a hospital. Was this really happening? She stood there for a moment, stunned by the unexpected turn her life had just taken. It was too much to process all at once, and yet it felt like an opportunity that she could never have dreamed of. But was it real? Or was it some kind of trap? "I don't know," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why would you help me?" "Because my father knows what it's like to be overlooked. To be underestimated," Marcus replied. "And I think he sees something in you that reminds him of himself." Maria stood there, feeling a wave of emotions flood over her: hope, doubt, disbelief. She had worked so hard, only to be let go when the system didn't see her value. But here was someone telling her that she had value, that her hard work was worth something. It was hard to believe, hard to trust. But as Marcus continued to speak, his words slowly began to sink in. Maria stood there for a long moment, the phone pressed to her ear, her mind spinning. The world she had known seemed to be crumbling beneath her feet, but here was Marcus, offering something she never thought possible. She had been let go from her job, rejected by a system that had never truly valued her, and yet, here was a chance to rewrite her future, if she could trust it. "Are you serious?" she finally asked, her voice shaking slightly. She couldn't help herself. The skepticism, the years of being overlooked, it all rushed to the surface. "You're offering to send me to medical school?" "Yes," Marcus's voice was steady, reassuring. "My father, William Bennett, believes in second chances. He knows that you didn't deserve what happened to you. He wants to give you the opportunity to finish what you started. To become a doctor." The words hung in the air, heavy with promise. Maria felt a surge of hope rise inside her, but she couldn't ignore the fear gnawing at her. It was too easy to doubt, too easy to assume there was a hidden catch. "But why me?" she asked, her tone softer now. "Why are you offering this to someone like me? I've seen your dedication, Maria. You didn't hesitate when that man collapsed. You didn't care who he was or what he looked like. You just helped him," Marcus replied. "And my father sees something in you that reminds him of the battles he fought when no one believed in him. He wants to give you what you deserve." Maria closed her eyes, trying to wrap her mind around the enormity of the offer. She had always dreamed of becoming a doctor, but the path had seemed so out of reach. Medical school was a luxury she could never afford, especially after the expenses of nursing school, the cost of living, and the responsibilities she had at home. She had sacrificed so much already, her health, her sleep, her time with her family, just to be taken seriously in a field that didn't always welcome people like her. But here was a chance to change everything. "I don't know what to say," Maria finally admitted, her voice thick with emotion. She wiped a tear from her cheek before it could fall, unsure of what she was feeling. Was it disbelief? Gratitude? A deep-seated fear of the unknown? "You don't have to say anything right now," Marcus said gently. "But think about it. It's a chance to finally take control of your future. To have the career you deserve. And it's a chance to prove that no matter where you come from, or what the world tries to tell you, you can achieve greatness." Maria stood there, her eyes scanning the streets of Los Angeles. The same city that had once seemed like a place of endless opportunity now felt like a battleground. She had fought for everything she had, and now, she had to decide whether to continue that fight or take this unexpected chance. A chance that, for once, wasn't about proving herself to anyone else. It was about her future, and her dreams. Maria stood there for a long moment, the phone pressed to her ear, her mind spinning. The world she had known seemed to be crumbling beneath her feet, but here was Marcus, offering something she never thought possible. She had been let go from her job, rejected by a system that had never truly valued her, and yet, here was a chance to rewrite her future, if she could trust it. "Are you serious?" she finally asked, her voice shaking slightly. She couldn't help herself. The skepticism, the years of being overlooked, it all rushed to the surface. "You're offering to send me to medical school?" "Yes," Marcus's voice was steady, reassuring. "My father, William Bennett, believes in second chances. He knows that you didn't deserve what happened to you. He wants to give you the opportunity to finish what you started. To become a doctor." The words hung in the air, heavy with promise. Maria felt a surge of hope rise inside her, but she couldn't ignore the fear gnawing at her. It was too easy to doubt, too easy to assume there was a hidden catch. "But why me?" she asked, her tone softer now. "Why are you offering this to someone like me? I've seen your dedication, Maria. You didn't hesitate when that man collapsed. You didn't care who he was or what he looked like. You just helped him," Marcus replied. "And my father sees something in you that reminds him of the battles he fought when no one believed in him. He wants to give you what you deserve." Maria closed her eyes, trying to wrap her mind around the enormity of the offer. She had always dreamed of becoming a doctor, but the path had seemed so out of reach. Medical school was a luxury she could never afford, especially after the expenses of nursing school, the cost of living, and the responsibilities she had at home. She had sacrificed so much already, her health, her sleep, her time with her family, just to be taken seriously in a field that didn't always welcome people like her. But here was a chance to change everything. "I don't know what to say," Maria finally admitted, her voice thick with emotion. She wiped a tear from her cheek before it could fall, unsure of what she was feeling. Was it disbelief? Gratitude? A deep-seated fear of the unknown? "You don't have to say anything right now," Marcus said gently. "But think about it. It's a chance to finally take control of your future. To have the career you deserve. And it's a chance to prove that no matter where you come from, or what the world tries to tell you, you can achieve greatness." Maria stood there, her eyes scanning the streets of Los Angeles. The same city that had once seemed like a place of endless opportunity now felt like a battleground. She had fought for everything she had, and now, she had to decide whether to continue that fight or take this unexpected chance. A chance that, for once, wasn't about proving herself to anyone else. It was about her future, and her dreams. Maria didn't waste any time processing her decision. The offer from Marcus Bennett was a lifeline, and she wasn't going to let it slip through her fingers. After hanging up the phone, she knew there was no turning back. Her path had shifted, but now she had to grow into the person who could seize this opportunity, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever doubted her. The next few weeks were a blur of meetings, paperwork, and adjustments. She received a call from Marcus's team to finalize the details of her new journey. William Bennett's generosity was as overwhelming as it was humbling. The funds were in place for her medical school tuition, and she would have a mentor, one of the best in the field, guiding her every step of the way. It was everything she had dreamed of but never thought she'd attain. But even as the world around her seemed to be opening up, Maria felt the weight of her past pulling at her. She had been in the system for so long, always struggling to prove her worth, always fighting for recognition in an industry that wasn't built for her. She was used to being the one who worked the hardest, who stayed late, who gave everything without asking for anything in return. She wasn't used to receiving, especially not something so monumental. The old Maria, the one who had just lost her job and been dismissed by her coworkers and bosses alike, was struggling to accept the idea of being helped. She had been so used to the constant fight, to the rejection, that she couldn't fully embrace the idea of success handed to her on a silver platter. There was a voice in her head that told her she didn't deserve it, that she hadn't earned it, even though she had. Her first day of medical school was a turning point. The campus, with its pristine buildings and confident students, felt intimidating. Maria stood outside the lecture hall, watching the other students file in, their expensive bags and brand new clothes a stark contrast to her worn-out coat and boots. She felt like an imposter, standing on the edge of a world she didn't belong in. The fear of failure, of not being good enough, crept up on her again, but this time, something inside her shifted. She remembered the man she had saved that day on the sidewalk, the crowd that had doubted her, and the fierce determination that had risen within her when everything seemed to be falling apart. She had always believed in herself when no one else did, but now, she had to believe that this was her time to thrive. Maria walked into the lecture hall with her head held high, her back straight, and her heart racing with the excitement of the unknown. It wasn't going to be easy. She knew that. But for the first time, she was ready. Ready to be the doctor she had always wanted to be, ready to break through the barriers that had been set in her path, and ready to prove that the world hadn't seen the last of Maria Johnson. As the days passed, she threw herself into her studies with the same fervor that had gotten her through nursing school. She worked harder than ever before, not just to survive, but to excel. The weight of the past didn't disappear overnight, but Maria was beginning to see it differently. Every challenge, every obstacle, was an opportunity to prove to herself that she was worthy of this second chance. Her relationship with Marcus also grew. What had started as an unexpected encounter had turned into something deeper. He wasn't just a benefactor or someone who had helped her in a moment of crisis. He had become a steady presence in her life, someone who truly understood her struggle and the sacrifices she had made to get to this point. They met frequently to discuss her progress, and Maria found herself opening up to him in ways she never had before. For the first time, she allowed herself to be vulnerable, to let someone see her for who she truly was, not just as a nurse or a victim of circumstance, but as a woman on a mission to reshape her future. The more Maria allowed herself to grow, the more she began to realize that she wasn't just becoming a better student or a future doctor, she was becoming a better version of herself. And that, she understood, was the greatest gift she could give herself. She wasn't just a nurse anymore. She wasn't just the woman who had been fired, the one whose job had been taken away for reasons beyond her control. She was a fighter, a dreamer, and, most importantly, someone who was ready to step into her true calling. Months passed, and with each passing day, Maria found herself transforming. She was no longer the woman who had once felt the crushing weight of failure and rejection. Now, she was becoming the doctor she had always dreamed of being. Her days were filled with lectures, clinical rotations, and late-night study sessions. But there was a fire inside her, a relentless drive to prove that she belonged in this world, not because she was given a chance, but because she had earned it. Her professors began to notice her unwavering commitment. They saw in her a strength and determination that set her apart from her peers. She wasn't just another student, she was someone who had fought tooth and nail for every opportunity she had been given. And that fight had shaped her into a force to be reckoned with. One day, after a particularly grueling exam, Maria found herself sitting alone on a bench outside the campus, the weight of her exhaustion finally catching up with her. As she sat there, catching her breath, Marcus found her, as he often did, with a warm smile and a quiet presence. "How's the hardest student on campus doing today?" he asked, sitting beside her. Maria chuckled softly, though it was tinged with weariness. "I don't know about the hardest, but definitely the most tired." Marcus looked at her, his gaze steady. "I think you're doing more than just surviving, Maria. You're thriving. I see it in everything you do. And you deserve this, every part of it." Maria's throat tightened as she looked at him. There were moments when the weight of what she had accomplished felt surreal, like she was still waiting for something to knock her back down. But then she remembered the man she had saved on the sidewalk, the doubt that had been cast on her, and how she had stood tall in the face of it all. That strength wasn't something that could be taken away from her. It was hers, earned with every challenge, every setback, and every moment of self-doubt she had fought through. "I don't know how I got here, Marcus," Maria admitted, her voice soft. "I thought I'd never make it past the first hurdle. But somehow, I'm still here. And for the first time in a long time, I'm starting to believe that I really do deserve this." "You do," he said simply. "And the world's going to see that too." In that moment, Maria realized that this wasn't just about a career or an opportunity, it was about reclaiming her power, her dignity, and her belief in herself. The road had been long and filled with obstacles, but every step had led her to this point. She wasn't just moving forward in her career, she was becoming the woman she had always been meant to be. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the campus, Maria stood up, stretching her tired muscles. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't afraid of what was ahead. She was ready. Ready for whatever came next, because she knew she had the strength to face it. This was only the beginning. The first chapter of a story that Maria had fought for. A story that no one else could write but her. She looked over at Marcus, offering him a small, genuine smile. "Thanks for believing in me." Marcus nodded, his smile warm and knowing. "You've always had it in you, Maria. I just helped you see it." With that, Maria turned and walked toward her future, the path ahead clear and full of promise. She wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was a woman who had found her voice, her purpose, and her place in the world. And nothing could take that away from her. If you'd like to continue with the final part or need any further adjustments, just let me know. As Maria walked through the halls of the medical school, the weight of everything she had overcome in the past months was not lost on her. Her journey was a testament to the power of perseverance, resilience, and the courage to take a leap of faith when life presented an unexpected opportunity. Her life had once felt dictated by the decisions of others, the hospital that had let her go, the crowd that had doubted her when she was only trying to help. But now, she was in control. She had learned that sometimes, the path to success doesn't come from following a straight line, but from having the strength to turn when life forces you to. The biggest lesson Maria had learned was that opportunities could come from the most unexpected places. She had spent years believing that if she just worked hard enough, if she just pushed through, things would eventually fall into place. But now she understood that success was also about recognizing when the right moment arrived and having the courage to take it, even when it seemed too good to be true. She had been knocked down, had seen doors close in her face, but Maria had learned to stand back up. The woman she was today wasn't defined by the struggles of her past, but by the strength she found in each moment of adversity. The road had been hard, but the lessons she had gained from it would carry her through every challenge to come. Maria's journey from nurse to medical student is more than just a story, it's a call to action for anyone facing adversity. In real life, we often find ourselves in situations where the odds seem stacked against us. Whether it's losing a job, facing personal struggles, or feeling overlooked and underestimated, it can feel like the world is conspiring to hold us back. But Maria's story shows us that the power to change our trajectory lies within us. No matter where we start, or how many obstacles we face, we have the ability to push forward. The key is not to let setbacks define us, but to use them as fuel for growth. Maria's ability to rise after being fired, to embrace the unexpected opportunity offered to her, and to grow through the challenges is something we can all learn from. In your own life, when faced with a difficult situation, ask yourself, what's the next step I can take? It's not always about having everything figured out. Sometimes, it's about taking a small step in the right direction, even when you're unsure of where it will lead. If you're facing a tough time, remember Maria's journey. Don't give up on yourself. Recognize the opportunities around you, and when they come, take them, even if they feel like a leap of faith. Trust that, like Maria, you have the strength to not only overcome challenges but to thrive in spite of them. Maria's story isn't just about becoming a doctor, it's about realizing that no matter where you are in life, the power to change your story is always within reach. It starts with believing in yourself, seizing opportunities, and never giving up, no matter how hard the road ahead may seem. Have you ever faced a setback that turned into an unexpected opportunity? Share your story with us in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay inspired by more stories that remind us to never give up on our dreams.